Well, g'day. My name's Matt. This video series is called Next Steps for the Church. And in this video series, we're talking about what does it mean for the church to become fully what Jesus had in mind, particularly in this moment in history. What kind of shape would the church have? And we've taken a whole journey looking at some of the background kind of things, some of the big principles. Now we're talking about some of the practices that would be necessary. Last week we talked about apprenticeship, prayer partners. We also talked about elders. Actually, it was last week we talked about elders. The week before we talked about apprenticeship, prayer partners from memory. This week I want to talk about having a global perspective and having a global perspective as a practice and not just an idea. What do I mean by that? Well, Jesus seemed to think it was fairly important when he commissioned his disciples before he ascended back to be with the Father in heaven. He said to the disciples, the Holy Spirit will come, and then you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria and all the uttermost parts of the world. And there's a sense in which his followers were to have a view and a heart for their local community there in Jerusalem, but to have a broader view and a broader commitment. And it's interesting watching the Apostle Paul work through his letters and through the book of Acts. And as he goes around the known world at that time, he tells each group of people about the other groups of people, and he actually actively encourages one group of people to support another group of people and to have a bigger view. I believe that the church we need to be is a global church. What do I mean by that? I mean a church that has a bigger view. If you live in a place like Hobart in Tasmania, there is a real danger that you can think this is normal. I can tell you, life in Hobart is not normal. Just as if you live in a place called St. Albert in Canada, you can think that's normal. And that's not normal. Or you can live in a place called Yendi in Ghana, and Yendi isn't normal. And Jakarta isn't normal. And, I've been so many different places. Cape Town in South Africa. Poland. My mates in Mexico. Each one of those places, you start to think that the way you see the world, the way you experience the world is normal. And particularly for those of us in the first world who think that the standard of living we're enjoying, the level of income, the level of comfort, that's kind of normal. We need to understand it's not. If you're on the dole in Australia, you're in the safely inside the top 10% of income earners in the world. And, chances are you're just scraping by in Australia because things cost a fair bit here. But you got to understand things are not equal. People are different. And there's something about having a global view that helps you understand yourself. Because there are blind spots every culture has. And it was really helpful for Leanne and I and the kids to spend some time in Canada and from a Canadian perspective see Australia. And I think I saw myself more clearly. Similarly, it was really helpful to go down with a bunch of Canadians to Mexico and see the impact that being in a different culture and understanding a different way of doing life has on a bunch of Canadians and also has on me as an Australian. Or for me personally, one of the most moving times of my life was going and doing some work on a community that is built on a rubbish dump just outside of Jakarta, and seeing these beautiful kids growing up in a world they believe that world's normal. They don't understand a place like Hobart could even exist, I don't think, but they are beautiful, and they challenged me. I firmly believe that a healthy church is one with a global view and a global commitment. And to be a follower of Jesus individually, I also believe you need to be willing to support and pray for people who are more than the people you bump into every day or every week. You need to be caring for the people on the front edges of the mission that God has on His heart for the world, right around the world. So I'd want to challenge you, at the very least, sponsor a child. At the very least, sponsor a child. Or, and I love the fact that our Lena Valley Church sponsors like 10 kids, and it's brilliant. It might be 12 actually. But I think we need to do more than that. I think we need to care about the communities they come from. There is something important about going to places and going to a different culture. I know it's had a huge impact on me to help me understand myself and my own culture better. I think there is something about committing to the long term, which is one of the great things about child sponsorship. But we need missionaries, need people to commit to the long term and walk with them long term. We need people on the front edges to be committed, not just financially, but also in prayer and also to care. I want to introduce you. It's almost too late now, but this is a really helpful guide. It's called 30 Days of Prayer for the Muslim World. And really what it does is it encourages people to pray for people from the Muslim community right the way through Ramadan, which we're in the middle of right now. And I find it just a really helpful broadening tool. There is also, I think, 14 Days of Prayer for the Hindu world, a similar kind of document for that. And both of them are very helpful ways to get a broader global view. So, all that said, what I want to challenge the church about is, I think every church has to commit to having a commitment to what God is doing in other places, and it has to be kind of normal that we're sending people off not just for holidays, but to engage with real people living in different cultures in different ways, and understanding and glimpsing what God's up to in those places. It was lovely hearing from one of our church families who went and spent time with missionaries in Thailand and how huge an impact that had on them. They went and did some tourist things, but it was actually spending time with the missionaries that made the difference, and now they're committed to supporting those missionaries. I think we all need to find ways of doing things like that. Heading to the outback of Australia and connecting with Indigenous communities and understanding the incredible treasure our Indigenous communities are for us in Australia. So I think churches need to do that. We need to go. We need to give. We need to be ready to give to not just, we've got to watch. Sometimes we give a handout as a way of avoiding responsibility. I think we need to care and think long term. We need to be ready to give to what God's doing around the place, particularly bigger than us. And I think we as individuals need to also be ready to go and to give. And to have a global vision. So that's what I believe that's an essential part of a healthy church, and an essential next step for the church to expand the global vision. So until next week, I hope that gets you thinking and asks some questions that might be helpful for you.